So today for Maths, we are going to be learning about different ways to pay for things. Now, we've done a lot of work so far on looking at how to pay for things with cash, which is one of the ways that we can do, but there are also lots of different ways that it is important to know about, especially for when you get a little bit older. So let's talk about the different methods you could use to purchase something. First one is cash. You know yourself that you generally use cash for like a small purchase. It would be quite unusual you would maybe spend over £100 in cash unless maybe you had some birthday money or something like that. But generally it's like if you run down the shops to grab a pint of milk, you might bring some cash with you, or you pay for your school dinners in cash. The second thing we're going to talk about is a bank account, and this links with everything else that we're going to talk about as well. So a bank account is something that you open with a certain bank. So for example, like Santander, Halifax, Bank of Scotland, Nationwide, there's lots of different banks and something called building societies that you can open your bank account with. And what you do with your bank account is you put money in it. So generally for most people, that'll be their wages whenever they get paid each month or each week will go into their bank account, and then they will spend that money from there. What your bank account basically is like a piggy bank, but instead of keeping the piggy bank, you send it to the bank and the bank keeps your money safe for you, with the promise that when you want to take the money out, you can use like an ATM, or you can use any of these payment methods that we're going to talk about to withdraw your money from your bank account. So most people who have a bank account will have something called a debit card. Now, a debit card is a card that you can use, like a chip and pin card. I'm just going to show you mine and we'll block out all the details. It does look like that, okay? So you've got a debit card, and you'll notice that on the debit card it says debit just there, and it's also got your little chip and pin on it. That means you can pop it into the machine. Now, a debit card is something that is used to take money out of your bank account that you already have. So for example, if you had £500 in your bank account and you wanted to buy something for £100, you could be fine to pay with that with your debit card, because the money is already in there for you. Another slightly more old-fashioned way that you can take money out of your bank account to pay for something is to use a cheque. Now, I have taken a photo of the school chequebook because I don't actually have one anymore, but I was just speaking to Mrs. Common, and she's really saying that we're not really using cheques very often anymore, and probably by the time you're a bit older, they probably won't really exist very much anymore because everything is kind of moving online. But I thought you'd quite like to see the example of what the chequebook looks like. On your debit card, you most people do, but you can get one without if you prefer, will have this symbol here, which means that the card is contactless. So that means you can tap the card onto the card reader in a shop or like a drive-through, anything, and it will charge your account without you having to put in what's called your PIN number, which is the little number you normally have to put in when you put it in the machine. Now, you can only do this on payments up to £45. So if it's more than £45, you need to put your card into the machine, and you need to enter your PIN number, which is your 4-digit code that you have, and you shouldn't tell anybody that. It's important to keep that secret. You'll also notice that when I'm showing you this card, I'm covering up all my numbers, because it's really not a good idea to put your card details on the internet in case somebody uses them to take your money. The other way that you can use contactless is to use your phone. So a smartphone, you can use something called Apple Pay, or there's ones for Android as well. And on my phone, you double click the side, and then it recognises your face, and you tap that on just like a contactless card, and it comes off the same card. So I've uploaded the card details for this card onto my phone, so when I use my phone to pay contactlessly, the money comes out of the bank account that is linked with this debit card. The next thing we're going to talk about is a credit card. Now, a credit card is slightly different. So with a debit card, you have to have money in your bank account to use it, and then you take money out of the account. With a credit card, you don't have any money in the account that you're using. So you pay for it, and as you pay for stuff, you then owe the credit card company money. So there's nothing in your account to start with, and you're spending money that you do not have in that account. So that means you're borrowing the money from someone else, and you have to pay it back. And in order for them to let you do this, they like to charge you something called interest, which means that they might charge you like 1 or 2% of how much you've borrowed, and you have to pay that extra back. So this is an example of a credit card. Now, it looks really similar to A debit card, it's got a different pattern on it, but they all do that. Really similar to a debit card, it's got the chip and pin thing on it. It's also got the contactless bit on the back, just there. And then it has also got something that says that it is a credit card just there. So that allows you to spend money that you don't already have, but then you do have to pay a little bit extra of a fee to sort of say thank you for letting me borrow the money. And the longer you borrow the money for, the more you have to pay back afterwards because you're owing them what's called interest. This also links well with something called an overdraft. Now your overdraft goes on your debit card account and you have to be over 18 to do this. You have to be over 18 to borrow any form of money. So you have to be over 18 to get a overdraft, but what it is say you've got £500 in your account and then you've got a £200 overdraft. What that means is I could actually spend £700 on that account and then I would owe the bank the 200. So as soon as like my wages went in the next month, it would build that back up to zero first of all. So it would take the 200 out of my wages and put me back to zero, and then I could put my extra money in beyond that. But you're owing money with an overdraft as well, and just like a credit card, it will charge you some interest as well on that. So you'll have to pay a little bit as a thank you for the bank for letting you borrow the money. Sometimes when you're a student, if you're a university or college student, you will get an interest-free overdraft, and that means you don't have to pay any interest on it. It's really, really important when you're using any kind of borrowing that you're able to pay the money back, because you can get in a lot of trouble if, say, you borrowed money on your credit card and then your overdraft on your debit card and you weren't able to pay it back. That would be a really, really big problem. So it's really important to be sensible and only borrow money if it's absolutely essential. But ideally, you wouldn't want to be doing that. And then we have got some bigger examples of how we borrow money. So we could borrow money through a loan or a mortgage. And that's when you have to apply to the bank and say, can I please borrow, for example, £5,000 to buy a car? And they say, yes, that's fine, but you'll need to pay it back over 3 years. So every month for 3 years, you'll pay a certain amount towards the loan. And then once the 3 years is up, you should have paid all the money back. But just like our other forms of borrowing, they will charge you interest. So say, for example, you borrowed £5,000 and you were paying it back at £300 a month. I'm not sure how much it really would be. You might then have to pay back a total of £6,000 because you've paid an extra £1,000 to say, okay, that's fine, I have borrowed the money, so I'll pay a little bit more back each month to sort of thank you for letting me borrow it. So the most sort of common reasons for loans are for big purchases like cars, or there's a different type of loan called a mortgage, which is when you borrow money to buy a house. So for a mortgage, you have to have some of your own money to put towards it, and then you take out a really big loan over maybe 25 years. So you might borrow up to sort of, well, there's no limit on it really, but you might borrow maybe £200,000 and pay back a certain amount of that every month. And the more you pay back, the more of the house you own, and the less the bank owns. But at the start, the bank will own a lot of the house because they've lent you all of the money to purchase it. If you don't pay back that mortgage, then they will come and they'll take the house back off of you. So it's really important, again, that you don't borrow too much that you can't pay back, because then you can get in big trouble. And then the final one I'm going to talk to you about is an online payment. So that might be something you're quite used to doing. I'm sure quite a lot of you already have debit cards, because children can get debit cards, so you just can't borrow any money or spend more than you have. But you would pay for things online, and to do that you would enter your card details onto, for example, a website to purchase something. So an example of this would be Amazon. So say you decided, right, I've got £30 in my bank account, I found something on Amazon that I want to buy for £22. You would put in your card details, click submit, Amazon would take that money out of your bank and you would be left with the £8 because you've spent 22. But remember, as a child, you can't spend more than you earn. Okay, so hopefully now you know a little bit more about the different methods of payment. So I'm going to quickly talk through your tasks for today. So your first task was to watch this video. Then you have got a quick assignment to complete. Only got 6 questions and it's about different ways to pay. You just match the method to the description in the question. And then you have got a game to play. Now the game tests your knowledge before and then after you've played it, so it's quite a good one to play. It mostly focuses on credit and debit cards. There are 3 extension activities. You do not need to do all of them, but I would suggest giving one a go because the main tasks today will probably be quite quick. So I've made a second video which has a really quick quiz in it just before questions about different methods you would use to pay for certain things. There's also a choice of a worksheet which has advantages and disadvantages of different types of payments. And then finally, there is an optional task to do a poster showing 6 different ways to pay, and I have popped a PowerPoint in the file section which may be helpful for this as well.